Good morning and thank you for joining this class, Modern Technology at Work. This class is being pre-recorded, even though it won't be posted until about 11 o'clock. That will enable me to attend the executive board meeting via Zoom of our congregation, and in a sense, able to be in two places at the same time. I also want to point out 3 places at the same time because at 11 o'clock our son Spencer has to have a Zoom class for his English class for school. We are faced with the necessity of self-quarantining. We are also faced with the outrageous situation of certain religious groups, and there are Jews among them, I'm embarrassed to say, who will not self-quarantine. I want to share something with you from the Torah itself. I'm just a couple of weeks ahead of where we are in our Torah reading right now, but we'll jump ahead to the 13th chapter of Leviticus. The 13th chapter of Leviticus is something people normally don't want to think about. Skin ailments, whatever they specifically are medically, is not our issue at all. Let me tell you how the procedure worked. If someone had a skin ailment, that person would go to the medical authority, yes, the medical authority at the time, who happened to be the priest. The priests were experts on everything. Today, we have subspecialties. So our politicians, our priests, aren't necessarily medical authorities. After a certain examination of the skin takes place in Leviticus 13:4, the priest shall isolate the affected person for 7 days. The priest shall isolate the affected person for 7 days. V'hiskir hakohen et hanega shivat yamim. Isolate, quarantine. If there isn't a cure, I shouldn't say cure, I suppose, if it doesn't go away, v'hiskiro hakohen shivat yamim shenit. The priest shall isolate that individual a second set of 7 days. We have further references to a similar procedure later on in this chapter and in the 14th chapter of Leviticus. And don't worry about the medical or physical aspects of the case. If a house is contaminated, it's supposed to be closed up for 7 days. Whatever our ancestors knew scientifically or medically, they did know something about preventive medicine. Now, I'm going to make a comment about what's going on in certain religious circles. We've had mega churches that have had services. We've had Jews in Israel who want to keep their yeshivas open and their minions going when there has been an infection rate that is unbelievable. Why don't these people who say we should live from a Jewish perspective according to the rules of the Torah, from a Christian perspective, a fundamentalist reading of the Bible, why aren't they aware of this? Now, I think even if these texts didn't exist, it wouldn't matter. We are under the obligation, the duty to follow the medical experts. If we keep separate, if we have a significant distance, if we stay home as much as possible, things are going to be a little bit better, and we should follow those guidelines. So I am combining what we think we understand in modern medical science with a very ancient practice, that self-segregating, that kind of being distant from your fellow human being can make a difference. Now, nowhere in the Torah does it say people prayed or offered sacrifices. If they did, if they didn't, is not the issue. If they did, they still quarantined themselves. You can pray all you want, you still have to quarantine. You pray that your quarantining yourself will be effective. Next chapter. Tomorrow night, Wednesday night, we are going to make available on YouTube and on Facebook a good part of a Seder we are going to conduct in our home. It has been my family's practice always to attend the congregational Seder, depending on the congregation, the first night or the second night. And the other night, we've always had a quiet, private Seder in our own home. Each Seder having a very, very different flavor and content because of the people present. Tomorrow night, we are going to use our imagination. You will see me. You will imagine there's a huge table in front of you with all kinds of people there. We won't let you see the empty places because the table isn't even that big. But we will imagine we are all present. The Seder will be imperfect. We won't have everything we need. We won't have all our families gathered together. In fact, the thought is still in process. We own at least 2 very nice Seder plates in our family, and I think we're going to show everyone one of the Seder plates with nothing on it to help those who have a Seder plate but don't have the right things to put on it. And if you don't have the right things, you can only do what you can do. I'm going to share with you in advance a couple of changes that I'm going to have in the Seder that reflect the reality of this year. You should be familiar with the section Ha-Lachma Anya. This is the bread of affliction which our ancestors ate. All those who are hungry, come and eat. Well, this year we can't say that. We can't say all those who are hungry, come and eat. All those who are hungry, stay at home. We have to segregate ourselves. We have to quarantine ourselves. So I'm going to share with you a special rereading of that. And I am going to share an English translation of what I intend to do, partially Wednesday night, in full in our private Seder on Thursday night. This is the bread of affliction which we are eating in solitude. All who are hungry, may they approach but not enter. Those who are needy, may they come and call for help. This year, we are here. Next year, among the communities of Israel. This year, we are in isolation. Next year, with a great public gathering. Now, let me comment a little bit about that for a moment. Where it says, this year we are here, in the original text, and this part is not in Hebrew, it's in Aramaic, interestingly enough, the traditional text would say, this year we are here, next year may we be in the land of Israel. Here we are saying, may we be with Jewish communities, may we be with larger gatherings and larger Seders. I want to share with you one other thing that I am planning to do. A good part of the text of the Seder, the traditional Seder, if you add up all the pages, the Psalms, the Hallel Psalms, Hallelujah. Now they are supposed to be Psalms of rejoicing, and we are rejoicing because we are freer than our ancestors, however restricted, enslaved we are. Here is a new prayer that should be said before the recitation of the Hallel, and we're only going to do the smallest part of the Hallel Psalms. Our Father who is in heaven, who settles the solitary in a home, it is revealed and known before you that it is our desire to extol you publicly with lots of people and to sing about your wonders before the congregation and all our people. This year, however, our Hallel is subdued. Our praise is measured, and we sing as solo performers. Here we sit, each in his or her own house, so that in future years we will have the merit to glorify and beautify your name in public. And we will raise our united voices in song and praise to the God of thanksgiving. Return, O God, the multitudes and thousands of Israel. The Seder, even in its most traditional fashion, and I'm hearing all kinds of traditions from all kinds of people, but what I'm referring to specifically is the text, the liturgy of the Seder, has been a work in process through the generations. Over the years, we added sections. Some of you, no, all of you, we're all old enough to remember when we were sent out special editions, extra passages to read in the Seder for the liberation of the Jews of the Soviet Union. Many of us set up extra seats at the table for Elijah, for example, but then additional seats symbolically for Jews who couldn't celebrate the Seder at all because they were imprisoned, enslaved in unpleasant circumstances. When our people were suffering in concentration camps and labor camps, they couldn't have Seders the way we wanted to. They did the best they possibly could. They tried to recall the text from memory. When there wasn't matzah available, what did they do? The commandment is to eat matzah, but it only needs to be a small amount. The greater commandment was not to eat bread. But what if you were in a labor camp, and by not eating bread, you would weaken yourself and perhaps die? These are very, very powerful times. And let me read you a text from the prayer before eating chametz, leavened bread, on Pesach. I want to read this because it comes across so powerfully that we can only do what we can do, and there is precedent in the Jewish tradition for acting in dire circumstances. In English, Our Father in heaven, it is open and known before you that it is our will to do your will and to celebrate this festival of Passover by eating matzah and refraining from leavened bread. With aching hearts, we realize that our slavery prevents us from such celebration. Since we find ourselves in a situation of danger to our lives, should we not eat this bread, we are prepared and ready to fulfill your commandment, the commandment, you shall live by them, by the commandments of the Torah, and not die by them. And we are warned by your warning, be very careful and guard your life. Therefore we pray to you that you maintain us in life and hasten to redeem us, that we may observe your very statutes and do your will and serve you with a perfect heart. Our situation today in 2020 is nothing like the situation that Jews of Europe suffered in the first part of the 20th century. And we are freer than the Jews of the Soviet Union. Yet we really shouldn't go out of our homes if we can manage to avoid that. And we should cover our faces with whatever masks we can make ourselves. We need to be extra careful. We can continue the age-old Jewish practice of hand washing. We can remember that throughout the ages, when confronted with adversity, our people found ways of adapting. One of the greatest revolutions in Jewish life right now, we're doing it. We're recording and we're Zooming. I don't like to predict, but I think this will change Jewish practice radically in the immediate future. What became an instrument to deal with difficulty at a time of emergency may be able to make it a new practice, so that if half of your family is in Texas and the other half of your family is in Boston, for sake of argument, you can all sort of be together on Passover. This is a time of the year when we try to get together with our families. For some of it, it is impossible or next to impossible, even under the best circumstances. This year, perhaps, with Zoom, we can connect with people who can't just fly down here for a couple of days, even if there weren't this virus threatening them. So I hope I've had an opportunity to teach two kinds of things this morning. Number one, an ancient text from the Torah, a text which most of us would write off as being completely irrelevant to our time. But look at how relevant it is. Look at how relevant it is when we need to talk about quarantining. Also, two more recent efforts, not to reject but to confront and adapt traditional sections in our liturgy, to speak to the moment. We don't have to throw our history away. We can learn from it. We don't have to just live in the past. We need to adapt it to the present day. So here's where we are. I will try to review what's coming up. Tomorrow night, it is our intention, and we're learning, we are recording a Seder. We have already, and it's going to be abbreviated, I know, we have already recorded music, and Kai worked with us, and Kai is going to be singing some of the things that she normally would be singing at our congregational Seder. And we are going to do our best to sort of put them all together. On Friday, we are going to record and make available by evening another Shabbat message, which of course this time will focus on the Shabbat between the beginning and the end of Pesach, the intermediate Shabbat of Pesach. I know how significant and important the last day of Pesach is with the Yizkor service. For that reason, I am planning next week, and it would be next Wednesday morning, to do something that will resemble what we normally have done on the last day. It won't be a full Pesach morning service. I intend to share with you, read with you the parts of the service that are Pesach oriented, but we will have a Yizkor service where we will be able to remember those of our family members who are no longer with us. I hope to be able to continue these online, YouTube, Facebook, Zoom, all these new expressions we are learning, opportunities to be with you. Let us try to make the best of it. And once again, I want to thank everyone who has given me support to learn these new technologies. In the music department, thanks to Anne and Kai. Also thanks to all the choir members when we tried to do a Zoom choir get-together the other day. However successful or unsuccessful that was, this is still an experiment. I need to thank Isaac and everyone in the office, to Shauna and to Jen. I need to thank Terry. I need to thank the entire temple staff. I need to thank Robin for keeping our financial office going. We are doing our best with our phone committees to get in touch with people and call people and try to find out their needs. But most of all, I need to thank my producer and director, and that is my wife, Corin, who has worked so hard to figure out how to work out all these new technologies. I need to thank our son Spencer for all his help. Our cat Amelia very graciously decided not to run across this table as we were doing this morning, and our dog kept his mouth shut for a change. I participated, by the way, in a webinar online yesterday, and I don't know what were there, 40 or 50 scholars and academics, rabbis, lawyers, etc. on this webinar. I could hear in the background somebody had a dog barking. So let us all get together in our own new and different modern way and commemorate the Exodus from Egypt together. Thank you very much for tuning in.